Our gospel lesson this morning is Matthew 5, 1 through 12. When Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountain. And after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to speak and taught them, saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you." This is the word of the Lord. Well, I'm sure that many of you who have been churchgoers for many years have heard those famous biblical passages before. Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. I'm sure a lot of people liked it because it was short and to the point. Now, scholars down through the years have just really thought that this is really a powerful passage. And they have called it the gospel in miniature. And over the years I've had to preach on this passage from time to time. But I'll let you in on a little secret. I've always had a hard time getting what that excitement about this passage is. It's always been a little hard for me to penetrate into this passage in a way that brings forth all that deep meaning and encapsulation of the gospel as a whole. And so I kind of wrestle with it every time it comes up. And then the other thing that have to do is, I tend to do it, I don't know if others do it or not, but I look out over the congregation and I know some people are grieving, so there's one about mourning here, and I tend to think, well, there's only one of these that can apply to one person. So if you're grieving, can't have any of the others. That's the one that matters. Or if you're pure in heart, let's see, which one is that? You know, kind of makes it hard. So you focus on the ones that you are moved to focus on that time. And then there is this whole business of blessing, which has roots, meaning happiness, and, that sort of thing. And all of the blessing seems to be future-oriented toward a very meaningful and positive relationship with God in the future. If you are mourning now, it's only in the future you will ultimately be comforted, because you have to go through the grief in order to get to the comfort. And if heaven is your reward, that means that you might be persecuted today and might wonder, well, where is that blessing? On the other hand, we have to live with hope. The opposite of that would be living in despair. People cannot do that. in despair, we are deeply depressed. We can find no meaning in what's going on, and we feel hopeless. And that's a terrible way to live. And so one of the messages here, I think, is Jesus is giving us hope. Hope that comes from God. And if you have it now, that's wonderful. If the hope you are offered will only come in the future, that's wonderful too, because we have to live through seeing the world through that lens. We have to live with hope. And so that helps strengthen us if we are persecuted or anything else that's negative. If you do want to be a peacemaker, but find that you encounter violence instead of peace, you can get discouraged, but instead you have to live in hope. So along the lines of wondering which of these appeal to different ones of you, I thought we might do a little exercise this morning. Now, if you would, take your bulletin and look at the passage and just kind of go down the list of the Beatitudes. That's what they're called, the Beatitudes. And just see which one stands out to you. I'll give you just a second to do it. Just don't worry, just see which one sort of stands out to you. If you had to choose, which one would you choose that fits you today? Okay, now, just like we do in joys and concerns, would somebody be willing to share which one they chose? Just raise your hand. Yeah, Cliff.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled.
All right, good. Jana, you have raised your hand too.
Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted.
All right. Yes.
Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy.
All right. Good. Anybody else? Blessed are the peacemakers. Okay. Anybody else? Blessed are the meek. Okay.
Blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God.
Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Anybody else? Okay. You are blessed. Whichever one you picked, you are blessed by God. And I invite you to embrace that blessing and to live in hope. If you are struggling, or in any case, live in the hope of God. For nothing is beyond God's ability to transform situations and life and bring you the blessing that you so need and want. Now, as I was pondering this passage this week, I had a new thought. For me, it was a new thought. It's probably not a new thought for a lot of people, but for me, it was a new thought about this passage. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, if it's typical to focus on one thing for one person, my thought was, well, maybe all of these characteristics have to do with all of us. After all, at one time or another, all of us mourn loss. But that doesn't characterize our whole being. So maybe all of these things are inside all of us. And maybe some of them come out at some points in our lives, and some other things come out at other points in our lives. I found that kind of neat, actually. And that made me think more about, say, the poor in spirit. Now, you got to interpret what poor in spirit means, and so I started wondering, well, okay, is somebody feeling diminished? Do you ever feel like life has treated you in such a way that you feel like you just don't have enough of yourself to go around? Or you feel like you don't have enough energy to do one more single thing? Are you feeling stressed out, and if anybody puts another burden on you, you're just going to scream? Or you're just worn out? There's a little poorness of spirit in there. You've taken care of little babies now. That'll wear you out. Sometimes you feel drained. And it made me think of a long time ago in graduate school, and I worked very hard and all year long, starting in the fall semester and going all the way through the spring semester, and then would come summer. And by the end of the spring semester, it's hard to describe really, but I actually sort of felt like my life force was diminished. And there was nothing to do except rest and allow it to regenerate. And it would. Now, I haven't tended to feel like that as summer comes along after graduate school, thank goodness. But I think about the church. We start in the fall. We have a busy season. We have Christmas, and we have Lent, and we have Easter, and by the time summer's here, sometimes the church can be exhausted. And we need to rest, and so we don't do a whole lot in the summer. And we recharge our batteries. So, all of us are blessed, for ours is the kingdom of heaven. Even though we live busy and sometimes stress-filled lives where we get overcommitted and overworked and underpaid and all the rest, we are blessed. For ours is the kingdom of heaven. And we can go down the list. One thing I thought about was... well, you can take any of these. Peacemakers, hunger and thirst for righteousness. You know what that made me think about? I'll just use an example of environmentalists. Now, many of you have heard of the very famous psychiatrist Carl Jung. And he was to be Freud's heir apparent, because he was really smart and Freud was getting older and Jung was going to be his heir apparent. But Jung went off and wrote his own stuff and made Freud mad, and so they separated. And he never became the heir apparent. But one of the things he wrote about was, he said he didn't just write about the unconscious like Freud did. He wrote about what he called the collective unconscious. It's like each of us, through our DNA, inherits all the history of the world and all the patterns of life, and it comes out. And he called that which comes out as a vision of the world out of which we live, he called those archetypes. And there are a whole bunch of different kinds of archetypes. And one of the examples I remember being used one time was the environmentalist. Some people, and I'm just using that as an example, some people just seem to be born to do the care of the earth, preserve the environment. nature, all the species. They're just born to it, you know. It's like they're living out of that archetype. It's like it shapes their whole view of the world. It shapes what they want to do with their life and helps them feel fulfilled, and they do it with a passion. So I think some of these things are like, sort of like that, you know. Some people are born to hunger and thirst for righteousness, and it's like inherent in them. And I wonder, you know, all of us have passions and directions in life. What is your vision for the world? And do you work for the fulfillment of that vision? If so, you are blessed and live in hope even when it seems like it's hard to fulfill. Well, that brings me to the annual meeting. Now, I know annual meetings are a ritual that's pretty mundane. And I'm thankful that in our church we don't use that time for neurotic people to get up and make us all miserable. That has happened sometimes. Some clergy have been really fearful of having the annual meeting, but that's needless and should not happen. So, it's pretty mundane, and we go through it, and people most often don't have many questions, and then we move on into the new year. It's sort of like a little ritual doorway we have into the new year. And it's a business meeting, basically. But the church, in relation to the Beatitudes, in relation to Jesus' sermon, the church carries on this sermon of Jesus by coming together and engaging in our mission together and in sharing the good news together to all the world. All the world is blessed by God. And so while we are the recipients of blessing, we also are the proclaimers of blessing as a church to one another and to the world around us in a whole lot of ways. And so while some people want to just ignore an annual meeting, it is an important thing because it propels us into the new year, and it propels us into our work of the church, part of which is to proclaim this good news of hope to people who are poor in spirit, to people who do mourn, to the meek, to those who work for justice, for those who are persecuted, to all people. There is hope, and the hope comes from God, and that's part of our job. And so that's, I think, one reason why we keep doing these annual meetings and make it part of our life of the church, and why all of us in the church family should attend and partake of it, because it is a doorway through which we walk into a new year of doing this work of carrying on this Sermon on the Mount. Amen.